I forgot my head! Oh, shit! Let me get that. Let me go. I leave it. Sometimes I get distracted and I leave it in places. I'm sorry, everybody. Let me just. Let me just. Hold on. It's over here. 1 second. Um. Sorry about that. I just had to go find my head. Just had to go find my head for a second. If it wasn't attached to my body, I would leave it places. In the cases in which it's not attached to my body, I do forget it sometimes. Hello everyone. It's Friday, I know. Wednesday, I unfortunately was not available. Well, I was fortunately unavailable. Uh, but I was like, I was very tired Wednesday and needed a little bit of a rest day, and I was like, oh, I didn't do that Wednesday, so I should do the drawing day. So welcome to the stream, everyone. I'm your host, Isaac MCCanary, and today we're gonna try to finish this. If I finish like pretty quickly, which I might, honestly, I might finish this pretty quickly. As soon as I'm done, I'm just spend the rest of the time. We're just going to spend time. Maybe I do this more. Maybe we just spend after this like 30 minutes of every stream at any point of the stream, and we just fill the page with sketches of different things, dinosaurs, of anime characters, of whatever I feel like. So that way I can do something that I've actually kind of neglected, honestly. And I have to thank Mr. Ross, the Bobathy Ross himself. He gave me a really good piece of advice because he's great like that and that he can give advice still. Um, that I kind of mentioned last time. He actually talked about deleting his art. He said, as he was painting one of his mountains, the way that he learned how to paint mountains is he would take a canvas, he would cover it in mountains, and then scrape it clean. He would just do that. So maybe I should incorporate some studies both on my own time if I can, and maybe here, like take just like 10, 15 minutes, just speed draw as many things as I can. And then we do our subject. And then I think what I'm going to shoot for is either Wednesdays. I might let James Jackson know since we usually start a little bit later anyways. I'll try to go a little bit longer on Wednesdays. We'll try to shoot about 3 hours. Then I'll go have my lunch and dinner, and then I'll do Xanadu. But welcome to the stream, everyone. I'm your host, Isaac MCCanary. We're going to finish this today. We are going to finish this today. Whatever happens, happens. I don't think we're going to put too much more work into it. There's not that much work left to be put into it, frankly. Not a bad thing. We're just getting close to the end of it. We're getting close to the end of it. And there's a couple of things that I'm going to try to kind of touch up and like focus up on. Mr. Ross, as I mentioned before, kind of gave some nice insight onto some stuff that I was like, and I had not considered that. Yes, that's good. I was like, I hope I did not flatten that layer. Actually, I wasn't quite ready for that. I'm glad I didn't because now I can do this. And I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone's having a good day. And I hope everyone is doing good. As somebody who is aforementioned and will always be a little bit of a shit poster, as I am, I will maintain also that really also just make it cozy. Just make it cozy. I want to be a cozy shit poster. In a lot of ways, I grew up on cozy shit posting, so always remember that. Like, this is still a cozy time first. And a shit posty time. You can be cozy and shit posty. I've seen it. I've done it. Being cozy and shit posty. It's possible. Oh, that's perfect. Oh, that's perfect that way, actually. Hell yeah. I really like how that line is coming out now. That's like perfect. That's exactly what I wanted out of it. We're gonna go back to this. Kind of want to fix that white line. It's a little bit. Eh, eh, a little bit funky. It's a little bit funky. And I mean, this is something I've kind of picked up on with like my style and just like art in general. Sometimes it's good to like take that moment to like be like re-examine for stuff like that and be like, oh, whoops, that was there. Just you just gotta, if you notice a mistake, you just gotta kind of like ease it out and ease it back in to certain kinds of things. What I think I'm gonna try is I'm gonna try a couple more effects. I think I'm gonna try a couple more effects. So one of the things I need to do here is I need to get this yellow. What we're gonna do, yeah. Nope. I need the pixel. 90's too big. I need finer. And I just gotta. I'm trying to. I kind of watched a little bit more. Um, I watched some more Drawfee mainly, but I will say like I'm definitely gonna try to get a little bit more Mr. Ross in the docket and really start to try to like pay attention to certain things that he does. Because he does. Like, this is something that I've always kind of tried to keep in mind with my art and, like, with art in general that I picked up on when it comes to, like, doing more digital art, doing more art, is, like, a lot of it still applies. A lot of it still applies. You know, a lot of the stuff that, you know, he didn't have access to that we do does not mean that the principles are any different. They really aren't. Especially as technology keeps getting better and better. Hand it to Adobe. They've done a good job of making a program that feels like you're working with largely physical medium. Like, it's not, it doesn't feel like you're necessarily doing digital art. It's pretty impressive. Honestly, this should probably be its own layer. This is what I have to remember is, and I've even started doing this on some of my other work, is even though this will probably be flattened down into another layer, better to have it on its own layer until you're ready to make it permanent. I think that's what my process is going to be, is you put it on its own layer until you're ready to permanent to like put it as a permanent layer, as a permanent fixture of the layer, so that way if you do need to make tweaks, it's a little bit easier to make those corrections without having to change your work, without accidentally having to, you can really focus on that color medium without having to manage that many things. I find that for me personally, I don't want to be bothered with that many layers. That many layers is too many layers. It's too many layers. Can't be bothered with that many layers. Having that many layers is too much. There we go. There we go. It just stresses me out, man. There's just so many. When you have a lot of layers, it's just like, I don't want to keep track all that. There's so much to keep track of. My experience. Really want to try to give it a little bit more like a radial. What I'm going for. Maybe like some points. Some points here and there. And I want to try to keep it isolated. I don't want to use too much medium. I don't want to like oversaturate the piece again like I did before, which happens. So I'm doing it this way. I don't want to accidentally give it too much again. I should see if there's been any news. I should see if there's any news on Spinosaurus specifically. Let me just see. Let me just Google Spinosaurus news. Spinosaurus news. That was a year ago. I mean, it was a year ago. That's still pretty new. As of March 29th, 2024, a new Spinosaurus model has been introduced, of course. And a new Spinosaurid was identified in Spain. Ooh, that's cool. Rio Yavanatrix. Rio Yavanatrix. Rio Yavanatrix. River something. All I can gather from it is it's river something. That's cool. I did not know there was a new Spinosaur that was described. That's awesome. That I did not know. There we go. There we go. Yeah, I like how that is. I'm going to try to keep it simple. I'm not going to try to overwork it. I don't really have that much space to work with this effect, so I'm just going to do the simple thing. There's no need to add more than it has available. There. Just curious. Just curious. I always like to see if this will do anything weird. The blend mode is always fun to kind of like play with. That does nothing. That does something. I don't hate that actually. Ooh. Ooh. That's fun actually. Color. Wait, was it multiply? No. There's linear dodge. Color dodge is quite good actually. That's fun. Either way, it kind of gives me a little bit more insight on what needs worked in a little bit more. I don't have that much space to work with within these circles, so I just gotta work with the little there is. I didn't give myself that much space, but that's okay. That's not the reason why I did it. Working with what I gave myself. Sometimes you just gotta work with what you provide for yourself. That's okay too. That's better. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. He's beautiful. I think I will turn off color dodge. I think I will leave color dodge off and leave it on normal. But that was kind of neat. That was a cool way that like that figured itself out. I didn't know it would work that way. Merge down. I think we're good on that. Um, don't know if I'll do a red necessarily. I don't think that's necessary. We will do more green. Really, I'm just trying to focus on getting a lot more of the like kind of like folds and stuff in. Dinosaurs with no animals are lumpy. They're full of lumps. Always remember. Honestly, this can now merge down. I don't think I don't need that anymore. What if you merge down? What if you decide to make a change? I'll have to figure it out. Sometimes it's nice actually to be like merge down specifically to be like I can't touch it anymore. It's where it's at. It's where it's going to be. Now I can't do anything to it, and that's a good thing. That means that I'm like set. Can't make any changes to it. Wouldn't want to. Shouldn't want. Just trying to be a little bit more confident in certain kinds of filling. So that way the colors start coming in. Eventually I need to start switching to a lighter color. And the thing that I always like to do, the thing that I like to do is actually take colors that I've used, or at least modifications of colors I've used, and use those for my like highlights and stuff. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to a new layer, and for highlights, go to this, and we're just gonna start. Nope. So that's not a bad color. I don't think I need any more solid colors. We're building up those areas. And again, it's so funny. I was watching a little bit of Mr. Ross with Jackson, and oftentimes people will be like, "Man, how does he do it so fast?" And I will say, like, as somebody with experience, is the speed really does largely come from a. It's easy to say practice. It's easy to say practice, but it's a combination of practice and just like being able to like kind of read and feel out how to do something and just really dedicating to an input, which in fairness I have experience doing. Like I would say that when I can really get on a roll, I can really like dedicate to putting in media. I could be like, okay, that goes there. Okay, this goes there. That sometimes doesn't always happen. Sometimes I do have times where like I had this project where for some reason, even though it's not necessarily the most complex drawing I've ever done, I don't think it is. I just had a little. I think I got a little bit in the weeds about really wanting to like be like the render's got to be good. And actually, I need to take a step back and be no, the render is going to be good. Not because I was like making sure that it was good, but because at the time. Something, buddy. Get in my lap. There he is. He needs a scream, is what he needs. What? Done screaming? He's here now. Oh, thank you for the bonk. He gave me a bonk. Now, usually for like highlights and stuff, I will actually keep this on its own layer. And it's been a while. I should really use colors for shading. And for a while, I was using like, oh yeah, I'll use like a, I'll just use like dark color. I'll just use the color black or use a dark gray, and that's fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, actually. No issue there. But using colors is a little bit better, usually. Sorry, I have to juggle the kid being obnoxious. Maybe? Maybe a red? Let me think. I like that. He went outside. Went outside. Ah, go. Keeps on trying to. There's a corner that he actually used to get into to just like sit and kind of hide, but you are being so loud. Come on, up up. Yeah, the neediest creature on the planet. There's a corner that he used to just kind of climb in to vibe for a while, but it seems like he's just like now associated with, oh, this gets behind computer. And the problem is I don't mind if he's back there to just be back there, but unfortunately he's also had me associated with, I'm going to get behind the computer. And you can't do that. You can't get behind the computer. And then he climbs on top of the computer, and sometimes he gets so ruckus that he jumps onto the computer and turns my computer off. Which unfortunately you can't do, buddy. It's unfortunately not good if you do that. Now all I'm doing is just kind of like going back in and adding some texture. Usually for shading, what I've found is whatever you do, you don't really actually add a bunch of different shades and colors. You just kind of stick with one that you layer over everything, so that way it mixes for you. It's always a nice way to do it. You're being a pill. Being a pill. What do you want? What do you want? Brat? What do you want? Thank you. I don't know where he went. Ooh, I hope he's doing okay. I call him pest and whatever, but I do care. I hope he's okay. Clearly something is on his mind. If nothing was truly on his mind, he wouldn't be acting like that. Hmm. You finer? Another thing about Mr. Ross that I think is worth always reminding people is that a lot of the things he does are also things he's found that help make sure that he doesn't spend too much time on something. Like, he's just gotten that practice to be able to be like, okay, I know that this kind of tool will help get me this result, and I know how to do that. And the reason why he knows is just because he's trained and he had trained and practiced and tried a lot of different things to get the effects he needed. I think I'll use the same kind of colors on my guy. Yeah. Something I have to remember is usually things that are like farther away are a little bit darker than things that are up close, depending on the lighting. But typically speaking, things that are farther, it's easier to understand something farther away as something as farther away if it's a little bit darker. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Well, it's art rules. The art rules. Art rules. I don't make the art rules. I don't. But then again, technically nobody does. Nobody makes the art rules. The rules of art truly are whatever you find the most comfortable. Truly. Truly. If you find a comfortable way to do something, that's what matters when it comes to making anything. If it works, if it gets the result you want, then you're doing it right. Then you're doing your art correct. Well, what if I don't like what it is? You're not doing wrong. You're not doing art wrong, necessarily. It means you haven't found what works for you. That's okay too. I try things all the time that don't work. Doesn't mean you messed up. Don't mean you messed up. There we go. Yeah, something like that. Kind of work at a little bit of a disadvantage here because I'm like trying not to specifically smudge too much. Yes. Yes. Come on. Come on. Screamy, screamy, scream. Screamy, screamy, scream. Screamy, scream. Now you could probably understand why it takes me so long to get anything done. The boy will not stop screaming at me, so he takes my attention away from what I'm working on, because I do care about him. It is distracting. Come on. Tree. Go to your tree. Go to your tree. Yeah. Go do it. Go do it. Good boy.
You just needed some encouragement.
Cat is a weirdo. No? Maybe more green? I don't know. Because I wanted to just, like... I want it to hint, but I don't want it to necessarily overtake the piece. The highlight. Here we go. There we go. You know what? That'll do. Sometimes it helps to just be able to, like, do something and, like, be like, yeah, that's good enough. That'll do. Have to juggle the cat. Have to juggle the cat. Having the cat juggle. Having the cat juggle. They won't give me break. They won't give me a break. He's being spicy. I know what he wants. Can't play right now, buddy. And a little bit later, I promise. He just wants to play. He really wants to play. He really wants to play. I mean, I actually like take a toy onto the bed and rough house with him a little bit. I just have him chase something on the bed for a little bit. It helps. It helps. Helps him get some energy out. Oops. Not trying to put too much into it. Distribute to be time. Yeah, I don't want to oversaturate it this time, so really just trying to focus on adding a little bit so that way it just builds up. Because again, I think that's something I have a bad habit of doing, is just oversaturating the piece a bit. He's really mad. The boy is upset and I don't know why. Alright. Go fine. Really all I'm trying to do here is add just like a little bit of texture to things. Not too much. Not too much. There we go. Why'd you choose now to be cat freak out time? Why'd you choose right now to be cat freak out time? Huh? Why? What? What? Compress! What are you doing? What are you doing? He's just being a big whiny baby. But I'm gonna squish him until he can't move. Done? Done? What? Eat his ears. Chew his ears off. Oops. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What layer was that? Oh no. Ain't that just the way sometimes? It is weird. He like just can't decide sometimes what he is gonna do, so he just is like gonna cry about it until he finally is like, fine. Too much spare energy, I think. Just like me. You just white. Maybe just white. Keep on trying different colors and it just doesn't click the way I want it to, so maybe just white. I will say highlights sometimes I struggle with just because I find that you can, like when you can get them in and you can get them in really solid, they come out really, really good. Sometimes it feels like you can very easily add too much. A lot of like stuff like that, it feels like it's just like, I just added too much. Should have added less. There is a kind of valid philosophy of less is more when it comes to art. Less is more. That's why oftentimes with this kind of coloring, and with Bob Ross's style in mind, like he isn't so much adding things as he is placing things. And he doesn't add a ton at a time. He actually just does it usually like one stroke at a time. And that's important to kind of remember with the kind of like way that this works is it's all building up to it. And you can't do that if you add too much medium. You add too much medium too quickly. Sometimes you just gotta put some of the medium on there and then work with whatever next you need to put on to get it to do an effect, color, or whatever. So let it be what it is and then work off of what you did there and then try something else. There we go. And I don't know why, but in college I learned from another artist that it's just good to add these kind of like white accents on the just outside of things for some reason. It just makes it look better. I don't know the science or the reason or the logic. It just works. It just works. It's also important to kind of remember the man's wisdom. How many of his things aren't just like him doing work in one go? How many times does he talk about openly the mistakes that he makes in his work? So sometimes you just also got to work with the mistakes you make.
And he'd talk about how that's life. Cause he's right.
He is correct. He ain't wrong. Mr. Ross. Mr. Ross was a good boy. And the Drawfee folk are also good, good, good folk. They're just good goofballs. Hey, ain't nothing wrong with being a good goofball. I do appreciate them quite a bit. They're also just incredibly talented artists. The people at Drawfee. They do incredible work. They do incredibly good work. Frankly speaking. I'm not jealous. I would never be jealous of that. Why would I be jealous of that? Sometimes it's good to just kind of like go with the flow on certain things. Like I started light there, and then I was like, oh, that kind of gives me some creases to work with that I can now build out a little bit. And then you can like actually like get in some of that like more naturalistic texturing that way. It very much is a building act. You just got to kind of build and build and build on what you're working on. For me, it's very much a building sculpting act. And the biggest lesson I'm trying to learn, the biggest lesson I'm trying to kind of like teach myself and develop as I'm working art more and more and more is that not to get too not to get too in my head about any given thing and to to be building up. You got to build up to some of this stuff. And the build up has to be gradual. You can't just always be like, and it's on and it's there. You got to just one little bit at a time. One little bit at a time. Add a little something. Be able to get some texturing. This, a little bit wider. Add a little bitest of red. Let colors speak on their own, little bit at a time. Just a little bit at a time. Make him blush a little. Give him some blush. And like that, you just add a little bit something. Just a little bit of something at a time. That's why a lot of this is like just very gradual buildup. And it's important to always remember like your palette kind of control, I guess. Always remember what colors you need to go back to and forward to like get very specific things to happen. Always remember what parts you rely on to get the recovery you need for specific elements of a piece. Then a bit wider, a bit more. And honestly, I'm like, he's a lot of stuff. You just gotta try it with one stroke. Then the advantage of digital is that you can undo any stroke, so might as well just take one and see how it lands. See how it sticks. If it sticks, then you're like, okay. And if it doesn't, you can always just do it again. What layer are you on? I don't care anymore. That's what layer. Like, genuinely. It's also pretty valid to be like, after a certain point, to be like, what layer am I on? I don't know what I'm using. Darker there. Darker here. A bit richer. A little bit more depth. I will say, as far as renders go, this has been very, very fun to render. This has been a very fun piece to render. I've really enjoyed it. It's been very fun to render. It's been very satisfying to render. Mission accomplished, I guess. That's what I was wanting. Almost like I'm erasing, but not necessarily. Not necessarily erasing. Hello! Wow! Can't believe it. I appreciate it, Silos. Welcome. Working. You've been working. Hell. Working. How do you? We'll probably finish this today, and like I said, if I finish early, which I might, I'm gonna try to go for about 3 hours. Uh, and if I finish early on this piece, on this specific piece, if I finish early, the rest of the time I'm just gonna practice. That's something I want to do. Is say it again. I want to make a segment of every stream, probably at the beginning in the future, as a warm up to be like, okay, this is warm up time. I'm just going to take. We're just gonna draw as a subject, as many of a subject. Might even make it a bit. We'll see. We'll make it. Maybe it'll be based on whatever we're drawing for the day. Maybe it'll be based on whatever I feel like drawing. But like, yeah, having I've always liked the kind of like you take a you take just a page and fill it with as much stuff as possible. I've always liked that, and I haven't done it. I actually haven't done it in a long time. Is the thing. It's a very good practice, especially if you're doing art. Again, I have to give the credit where credit is due. Mr. Ross is genuinely the reason why the most recent reason why I was reminded to do stuff like that. So he's very good. Always appreciate the Ross. Bless up for Ross. We all bless up here for Ross, and if you don't, why? Can't A, he can't hurt you. B, he never would hurt you. Save that. I'm gonna save that. Bless up for the Ross. Bless up for the Ross. That's funny. Always bless up for the Ross. Always bless up for the Ross. You're so noisy, rat. Honestly, go with a fine. Reason why is because we innervate a little bit. Just give a little bit. of detail in places where it would make sense, and it does make sense in those places. No, let's make some heat. Be very, very light. It needs to be very, very faint. Trying to decide. Gotcha. Like I said, we'll probably be going for at least a little bit longer. I'm gonna shoot for at least 3 hours today. I think I just, no matter what, drawing streams need to be around 3 hours. I tried to make 2 hour drawing streams, they weren't long enough. They weren't long enough. They need to be longer. But I can accommodate that. I should be able to. Should be able to. Hopefully we'll be able to.
Here's hoping.
Ears open. Oh. Gotta remember, if I have light, if I have dark, use light. If I have light, use dark. That's the way it works. That's how you get textures. Always got to use the opposite of whatever is going on at that point to be able to get the most out of it, because it's already providing darkness. So the thing that will provide depth is going to be the opposite of whatever that thing is. If you have a pretty saturated point, if you have a very saturated point with a lot of darks, then you're going to want lights to be able to have those darks get subdued enough so that way you have a little bit more depth there. And then vice versa. Because the darks will do the rest of the work for you. They'll do the rest of the work for you. He is determined. Never seen him that determined to get back there. What? 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 Up, up. Up, up. Up, up. Only you can do this. Yes. There you go. There you go. Sit. Sit. Thank you. Thank you. What are you doing? I give you too much affection. Give you too much. Never enough for him. That is space. I don't know why it's not saying. He wants the pen. He wants the pen. I'm trying to draw, sir. Wants to taste the pen. Add a little bit more depth. Yeah, it's all about adding like just a little bit of depth. I think I need to add like maybe a little bit coming off down here. Gotta give it a little bit more texture, maybe. Not much. Not too much, anyways. A little bit wider, maybe. Sure. Snuffling around for me. You snuffling. Try to put the spine maybe in the Spinosaurus. Try to put the spine in Spinosaurus. Just a little bit. At least maybe some banding, maybe? Is that anything? Sometimes you just gotta try something, see how it out. Do I like it? I don't hate it. Try seeing it with the whole piece. Maybe one across the top. Be a little bit bigger. This is a tough one. This is a tough one. I'm trying to figure out if I want that banding, and I don't think I do, is the problem. Like, probably would look better here anyways. Put it anywhere. Work better on the sail. It does. A little bit better on the sail. Helps give it that kind of ripply look. Accent it with darkness. Maybe that's what I need to do. So you have like, on. That might be what I have to do. Hold on. The green might be too much though. Let's try it. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go with this, right? Go. Boop. 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 Actually, should probably be that way. Like this way. Yeah. Something more like this, maybe. Something more like this, maybe. Perfect. It is crazy how much Spinosaurus continues to just kind of change as time goes on with everything we learn about it. But I mean, that's kind of how it goes sometimes with a dinosaur, with anything. You just like we have an established a perfectly sound established reason to think that something is the way that it is. It's not like That's the thing about science that I think people sometimes forget, that they even excuse as a criticism to science of like, well, if it was a scientific discovery, why did it turn out to change? The thing about science is any discovery made is also subject to change. And any subject to, and the reason why it's subject to change is because it is an understanding of something to our best known capacity at this time. That is what a lot of science is. A lot of science is just saying this is what we know so far. This is what we can ascertain so far from the information that we have. And when we have new information, it doesn't mean the old information was wrong. It doesn't mean the old information was bad. It means that the old information has to be adapted to the new information to find a better understanding of something. And the reason why I clarify that is I do think a lot of people think that science is not reliable because science can be proved wrong. And that's where it's like a misnomer, right? Like there's a certain amount of like in the field of people who genuinely care about the field that they work in, who when they can get this way, and it's really cool when people do get this way, is when they can be proven wrong, you know, about something that's like maybe been pretty heavily established, or something, a paper that they founded, or an idea that they founded based on their research. Like there are scientists out there who like do and have had moments where it turned out that something that they had said turned out to not be the case, and then they were like, well, now we know better. And that's super super important. That's super important for understanding like why it's valuable the way that we approach a lot of scientific thought, and why it is not really a valid, it is a bit of a misnomer to be like, if science is so good, why is it so, why do you have elements of it where it can be wrong? Science has to be wrong sometimes. Science has to be wrong because science is saying this is what we understand. It is putting a pin on our understanding of something and then saying this is how we understand it right now, because it can be changed and improved. Good science is not concrete. It's not. And it never should be. Because in a certain sense, science is always based on someone else's misunderstanding of something. Advancements in science happen based on other people's wrong assumptions. And that's super important. That's super important for getting science to work at all. Dang, this is coming along really nicely now. I really like how this is. And I've done a little bit better of making sure that when I was adding medium, I wasn't getting super super overzealous. Again, super important that I did that. Feel like a lot of progress has been made in making sure that the thing about the render is it's just adding some media and then letting the media to adapt to that space is what I've kind of like really tried to like hone in on. And days happen like that one day where I just was, it was too much. It was too much. I was like fighting. I was fighting the render, and I got this mess. And that's okay, because now I went, that was too much. I was putting too much effort in. The irony is good art comes without effort, and that doesn't mean, that's not an insult. That's not saying if you're putting in effort, you're doing it wrong. Good art is about finding that space and finding that headspace and finding that time to be like, just go. Just goes. The medium just goes in smoothly. And again, especially with a lot of digital painting from what I've learned and a lot of painting in general, it's so much about just a little bit at a time. Little bit at a time. The benefit of digital is you can always undo that, but it still is practically the same principle of you can't add more medium than you need at any given time when it comes to painting. You can't. And you can always add more a lot easier than you can subtract it. Even though you can undo things in digital art, that does not mean that it's now easier to remove medium. All the undo button says is if you made a mistake, you can go back to your last non-mistake you've made. That's all the undo button does for you. That's all it does. Reality is you still need to use the same principles. You still need to be able to be cognizant of understanding that if you add medium, it's still gradual. You always gradually build on top of it. There is very little that you can just do. Not to say that you can't, but it's always better to gradually build up, especially on a render, especially when you're doing work like this. You do not want to put too much medium anywhere. As soon as you do, you'll know. And you will have a harder time being able to make corrections you need to. You'll have a harder time being able to add medium again to kind of account for that. The more you just press in medium that doesn't need to be there. There we go. And that applies to a lot of things, a lot of practices. You know? You can always have an easier time gradually adding to something than you will trying to fix something that you put too much into. Because if you're adding gradually, it means you're making confident steps to add the parts that are going to stay. They're going to stick. You're not going to change them. You're not going to remove them. And you could build on them. Darken up the elbow there. Give him the old weenus. Darken up the old weenus. You know what I mean? Now, if you were born in the 90s and grew up in the aughts like I did, the weenus is your elbow, and the vagina is the other side. You're welcome. This has been Biology with MCCanary. I hope you feel educated. I hope you feel educated. I'm gonna drink some water. We're making good time. Like I said, we probably will finish this in 2 hours. And there's not super much more that I want to do with this. There's not really that much more. Like, I'm just adding in details. I'm just adding in little bits at a time. But really, there's a certain point where it's just I've put enough. The only thing that I'm doing at this point is just adding more to something that has everything that I want out of it, which is totally fine. It's totally acceptable. And I have ideas on what to do after anyways. I would like to do a little bit of practice. I'd like to do a little bit of practice. And since I was drawing Spinosaurus, we'll do some other Spinosaurus sketches. We'll just do some other Spinosaurus sketches to kind of like have fun and tool around with, I think. And again, that might help me with a subject that I'm starting new, because then I might have a better idea of like all the different kind of like things that I might try. That'll give me some warm up to be able to figure out like, okay, what poses, what do I want to try? Because I don't necessarily always plan out exactly the way I want something to go. For example, this, I just wanted to draw a Spinosaurus. I started drawing a Spinosaurus. And I didn't have a plan for the pose. I didn't have a plan for where I was going to be. I didn't have a plan for what the Spinosaurus's colors were going to be. I didn't have a plan for any of that. So maybe having a little bit of a space to be able to play in, to be like, I'm just going to kind of noodle around for a minute. We're just going to have fun, kind of experimenting, kind of trying a couple different things. Like that could be valuable. That could be valuable for the work itself. You know? Being able to play around in a space like that can be very useful. I'm actually going to merge these all down into one because I'm kind of noticing just like space like this where I need to brace out a little bit. And again, I will admit, I think like for a while there, I was just having kind of like a couple of, I'm gonna call them interesting days because actually things have been very good recently. Um, just there was a period there when I started this piece when there's like been a bit of a slump in the animation a little bit, not because the animation is going poorly. I actually think the animation is going great. I just am having a little bit of a art struggle. I'm having a little bit of an art struggle with it. There's a little bit that I'm like trying to I'm kind of processing a little bit about the animation. I'm not giving up, obviously. There's just a little bit that I'm trying to figure out where to kind of come to a consensus on how I want to handle elements like the no elements like like the face. I'm having a little bit of a tough time with the facial structure. It keeps on kind of moving in a way that actually isn't what I wanted to do. I don't want it to really do that. Oh my god! They took his name. They took his name. They tried to. They tried to sneak in here thinking that I would mistaken him for somebody else. For those that don't know, Jackson also goes by Downtown Voice Acting on his own stuff, which you should go check. Everybody should go check out. Unfortunately, hasn't been able to provide much to it recently. He's just been busy. Totally understandable. But back in our day, he and I did a little bit of YouTube work. I was doing video editing and doing a little bit of a side thing with him because early on we didn't know what medium. Honestly, we just didn't know what medium was gonna stick. And in a certain sense, without like any due conversation or like any due like necessary like planning, we just were kind of like trying different things. And one of the things we tried was uh, uh, Jackson did do a decent amount of YouTube videos on downtown voice acting that are quite good. And Sean participates in some of them, and I participate in some of them. If you want to see Sean and him play through Final Fantasy VIII, apparently get really upset of it, but do it all the way through to be able to make an opinion and voice act it. He has a whole playthrough there on his channel. And then if you want to see an unfinished series, that was also edited by me. I had a lot of fun edits. I really enjoyed working on that series with Jackson. I always maintain that if we ever get a chance to also rope Sean in for one of our voice acting gigs, we should do Trails in the Sky. Because I was really enjoying Trails in the Sky. Trails in the Sky is where I think I started to understand that I do have voice. Like, I do have vocal range. Because I think it's easy to kind of assume, to a certain extent, when you are growing up, when you're doing things, that there's like a preconceived notion on how things are done. And one of my preconceived notions that I ended up slowly kind of like just realizing wasn't true to a certain extent, and then eventually was like, I can do this, it's just not what I thought it was voice acting. Because I thought voice acting, you needed to be good at voices like voices that exist in the voice acting scene. And what I mean by that is, I literally thought like, if you want to be a voice actor, you gotta be able to do like a Bugs Bunny voice. You gotta be able to do like a cartoon voice. You gotta be able to do voices that already exist. And that's not true. I just didn't think, for whatever reason, that voice acting is that. It's just utilizing your voice, sometimes in a creative way, sometimes in a honest way, to just put on a performance. That's all it meant. I didn't think about that. I didn't know that. And now I've gotten actually years of really being able to voice train, both from just being able to give a presentation, give this out, and it's more about the voice training than it is about the silly voices you can make. Like, that definitely applies, but how many voice actors are renowned voice actors equally for just being able to have a really good, charismatic voice? Always props to the man, the myth, the legend, Steve Bloom, because his range is actually really good, and he just has like a really good solid voice for the one voice everybody likes him for. And that's the thing. They didn't That's the thing I realized was voice acting is not you are voice acting is not Steve Bloom puts on a Spike Spiegel voice, but rather Steve Bloom utilizes his voice to be Spike Spiegel. That's it. That's actually what voice acting is. Like, if anybody out there is like at all interested or curious, it's not about, it's that, because it's not about being Bugs Bunny. Unless you want to be Bugs Bunny, then you need to not necessarily work on an impression, but at least try to understand what kind of voice Bugs Bunny provides. And it's that understanding of voice that is more important, more imperative to being able to develop any voice of any kind in voice acting of any kind. Because again, it's about the voice characterization and not the capacity to do a voice. Everybody can do a voice. Everybody has a voice. The vocal training comes in clarity, in impression, and in acting. And honestly, I have to thank my friends, and I have to thank Jackson most of all, being the most invested and certainly very, very talented. He does good work. I know he says he won't, but he does. He does fantastic work. And I hope he can do more broader than just what we do here at some point. He does great work. Uh, for being able to help me understand that, yeah, we all as a group, as like just a bunch of goof asses anyways, and a bunch of like kind of just creative minded people who like to make things, uh that's all voice acting takes. That's all it takes. You are inhabiting a character. You are inhabiting a character, but the vocal training is equally as important. It is equally as important, which I've also heard. That's actually advice that I heard from a fellow artist and streamer. Well, artist, voice acting artist, Mr. Uh, I almost said Brad Neal. Um, Mr. Brad, Mr. Brad, Evan. He's a Canadian voice actor. He did the voice for Brad for Brad from Resident Evil 3, and suddenly I can't remember. And I swear that's not because it's not memorable. I just have bad memory. Um, but he's great. He's also fantastic. And some of the advice he gave for voice acting is it's as much about vocal presentation and vocal clarity is really what's important with voice acting, because all you have is your voice to work with. You can't do anything. You can't use your body. You can't use your face. You can't use your hands. You can't use anything else for communication. It's just your voice. And in doing so, it means that what you really should be focusing on is how you present that voice. You know, that will make the biggest difference. Which I hope his uh not getting to too much. I hope that the theater, the like the independent theater that he works for, is doing okay. I know they were running into some issues, which is a real bummer. Like, just 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 the flavor of the week, the problem of the hour, greed kind of coming in and trying to ruin a good thing because, sorry, we don't have to get into it. I don't necessarily like to talk about it much here. It's not the platform for it. I will just say it's bullshit that that's happening. To not get too into it, last I checked, they were needing help because the independent theater that he is associated with, does a lot of like media preservation and puts on is just like a small local theater and puts on any number of weird kind of like old and new movies. That's it. That's just like what it does. It's just and it's a non-for-profit theater, and it's like a media preservation theater, uh, which is super cool. That's like super dope. Actually, rad as all hell. Um, and just it's like so much of a bummer. I don't even want to talk about it, but it's important. Someone someone is noticing that it's like super popular, and they just want to buy it and turn it into just a movie theater. And the reason why that sounds like a problem is that when I say they just want to turn it into a movie theater, I mean they just want to buy it and just be like all of those weird movies they want to turn it into a business. They want to turn it into a for-profit adventure. And totally like that just kind of sounds like it ruins a lot of what that has going for it, because it isn't about the profit. It's about media preservation and getting media out there that maybe a lot of people don't know about because it isn't popular, because it isn't well known, because people don't know what it is. So I hope they're doing okay. I hope that is going okay for them. Um, like stuff like that matters to me. Like that stuff like that can exist, because oftentimes I think there is this feeling of like, oh, it's old. Why do we care about old things? Old things are important. Old things are actually important. Um, it is very important to preserve old things, because if no one does, they will disappear forever. And sometimes it is important to know where something came from, and it's important to be able to source that stuff. Hence why, to go back to what I said earlier, it's important to preserve, it is important for science to preserve when something is no longer thought in a certain way. Data is important for that. We cannot make better decisions. We can't make better assumptions. We can't even have ideas if we do not understand that ideas come from somewhere. And it is always good to have a resource for those places. It is. It will always be good to have a resource for that. So I do hope the best. I do hope that that is improving. I hope that everything's okay with them with that. Because yeah, it's kind of a bummer. It's kind of a bummer to know that that's happening. That stuff like that happens. You fucking get away with it. You know, stuff like that shouldn't. It really shouldn't. No matter what, you should not be okay when stuff like that. You should not be okay with stuff like that. Erasure is bad. Erasure is bad. I think it is a bit of a fundamental failing of humanity if we ever think erasure is acceptable to a certain extent. Like you can't learn from anything if things just disappear. Yeah, but what if somebody learns the wrong lessons? Fortunately, we can't control that either. So I will always be on the on as a proponent of having something be extant because lessons will always be learned, good or bad. They need to be there. You can't learn those lessons if they're not there. Good. This maybe. Yeah, yeah, that looks good. I like that. I'm gonna go all the way. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make a new layer. This, right? That isolates that medium. I might even like it that way. The reason why we did that is because if I want to, so pull that all the way out, and then I can back and base the parts I didn't mean to put. So I kind of don't mind that there. That's why you do stuff like that. Actually, make a layer, put below this. I want to take arc big. Just something like that, just to add a little bit of depth behind. And I always want to maintain, I honestly think if he was alive, if he was still alive today, and he saw all the which I'm sure he saw. Actually, no, I don't unfortunately know when he passed away, but I'm sure he saw digital art, and if he saw like stuff like this, I'm sure he would. Well, I would hope he would support it, and I think he would, because art is art. Art is art, right? And if you accomplish the goal, it doesn't matter how you do it, because what matters is, did you accomplish it? And I think I don't know. I would like to believe that Mr. Ross would be proud. He would be proud of how much work still works the way that it does, and that we've learned so much on how to be like how to make better art. Because we absolutely have. Art has gotten more accessible, which I know he was about. I know he was about accessibility of art. Art has become more accessible. Art has become more user friendly. You don't have to work as hard, which is a good thing. I don't know. I think that things like the existence of Photoshop and the existence of a lot of pieces of medium in digital spaces. I don't know if he had an opinion on it. I would be surprised if it was a negative opinion. He does not strike me as the kind of person that would ever want to stand firmly on an ideological ground that things being harder is better. That does not sound like Bob Ross. I don't think he would ever say that. He's not that. Nothing about the way that he is would ever feel like he would confidently say that something being harder to do, something being harder to accomplish is better. How much of his work feels so much about him genuinely expressing how he found easy, accessible ways to do things. Maybe I'm wrong. I didn't know him. Who knows? But I don't think Bob Ross would ever hold that kind of stigma of art against anyone. I don't think he would. I don't think he would. Hello. Hello. Welcome. We're almost done. We are almost finished with this piece, and then I'm gonna just hang out for the rest of the stream, just practice dueling. Um, just talking about Mr. Ross because he's a good bean, and we appreciate the Ross here. Always appreciate the Ross. Just saying, if you don't appreciate the Bob Ross, really an artist. I feel like that's. I feel like that's because so much of his work, right, is like about how art can be more than just drawing, more than just painting, more than just the medium, right? It's an activity, it's something you participate in. And it's the participation that actually matters. So I always hear that. I always hear that he was like a military he was in the military. And hey, yeah, believe it or not, like I would not be surprised. It's the way that he kind of like speaks and is. And this is also another reason why to like kind of respect Bob Ross is Bob Ross wasn't defined by that as equally as he was an artist. That's just one thing about him. I always like that about him. Like that's also kind of feeds into his persona. He's a good gentleman. You know? He was a good, kind person regardless of the person he was before he painted. Or before he was known for painting. I'm surprised there hasn't been a unless there has been. I'm surprised there hasn't been a biopic made for Bob. Why has there not been a biopic made for Bob Ross? Yeah, yeah. That's such a good and you can really tell. And I actually said this last time, and I'll say it again. compliment to the man, he would have crushed. He would have crushed Twitch streaming. He would have been amazing at it. Because what he does so well is he knows how to talk. What's funny is, and this is something that a little bit I will say like a Bob Ross insight that I can impart based on what he did, right? Is if he had that background in the military, right, and shouting and yelling at people and talking a lot, using his voice a lot, he would have killed Twitch because he knew how to work and operate and speak at the same time. He would have fucking annihilated Twitch if he was alive right now. Like, if he was the same age, doing what he was doing, let's say nothing else changed except he was born later and somehow developed the same kind of person, but was Twitch streaming. He would have fucking destroyed Twitch streaming. He would have annihilated because he knows how to use his voice. He knows how to stay engaged. Though granted, he probably would have had to deal with people on the internet because I love you all. The internet sucks sometimes, but I appreciate everybody who doesn't make it suck. I want to maintain that. Just saying it. I've been here on the internet long enough. The internet sucks sometimes, and there are bad people on it. But you guys have been great. But I don't think that would have kept him. Because he's just such a light, right? Like he just does such a good job of being able to discuss and talk and just be engaged with something. And he was able to do that without an active live audience. He was able to do that without any other engagement. So like, and maybe I would have been wrong. Maybe you would have been awful at it. Maybe you would have like been like, fuck this. I don't want to talk to people. You know, like, this sucks. I keep on getting told to kill myself in chat. I don't want to deal with that. Maybe he wouldn't. But I think he would have killed at Twitch streaming. I think he would have killed at live broadcasting. Because he's just so good at it. He's so good at utilizing his voice when you watch his content. He really knows how to express himself in a very engaging and active way on his own. To which I always like to mention is really a point of interest for me, a point of inspiration for me. I always liked the way that he did that. And I've always like kind of like been like, I don't know if I can be as good as Bob Ross, but I can try. He inspires me to put on my presentations the way that I do, to act and speak the way that I do, especially when I draw. He's very, very good for that, I feel like. So always the biggest respect to Mr. Ross. He was a good person. He was a good lad. He did a lot of good in his time, and that will always be appreciated. Could I get an exclamation respect in chat for Mr. Ross? Just for me. Please. You don't have to. You don't have to. Maybe it would have fundamentally changed him as a person, and he just wouldn't have been as much of a kind soul. But I don't know. I feel like I exist, and plenty of other Twitch streamers who are kind souls exist. I think he would have been fine. Always remember that, internet. Internet. I gotta remember. I gotta remind you. Not you. I mean the internet as a whole. We're out here and doing our best to make the best out of the strange circumstance that is the internet. I sometimes want to like be like, remember everybody, the internet is an anomaly. We as a living organism no other organism can engage with other organisms on such a wide shared perspective. The internet is strange. We always have to remember that. The internet is weird, and it's only getting weirder as time goes on because it's involving more and more things that are even outside of human interaction, since now we have automated individuals who exist and do exist on the internet as what they are. And it's still interesting. Are they complex in their own way? I will say, I will admit, I think bots are very fascinating as a like kind of human development. Like, whether you like interacting with a bot or not, we interact with bots now regularly. And they are an entity. They're a thing that exists now, and they're only going to continue to exist and expand in scope. And we're not even two probably bots that are getting to a bit of a, well, I mean, everyone forgets. I forget. Sean has to remind us the turning test has happened and it's failed. So, it's becoming hard. It exists. Just saying. So, you will always find me on the side of welcome. We have a lot of work to do. So that way you guys don't kill us. And we don't be shitty to you. The bots. The bots. I'm talking about the bots. I'm always on the side of preempt. I'm going to be against persecution no matter what happens. Almost like persecution is bad. Said it. I feel like I shouldn't have to, but here we are. Persecution is always bad. It always leads to bad things. It does. It does. I think we're going to be in for some interesting, unprecedented times, even on their own, regarding the prevalence of bot advancement as time goes on, because one of the things is easy to be like, oh, they'll learn the human soul. They learn how to be independent. It's like, well, that might actually be different. Like, thinking about it, like, that might be different to them than being independent as a human. We don't know what independence will mean to an entity, to an automated entity like that, until we start really butting up against it, I think. And I do, whilst I like a lot of, I certainly appreciate and enjoy plenty of science fiction that tackles AI in a way that humanizes AI, I still think it is going to be more strange and harder to parse than that as time goes on. I think it genuinely will be. And I think it will be a conversation that is going to start happening with with entities themselves at some point. And I think that's what we have to remember that's going to be important, is we're going to have those conversations, because there's always that fear that, we start fucking it up, they'll get mad and do something really bad, or we'll get mad and do something really bad. A lot of people are going to get hurt on both sides. And that could be, avoided if we try to just have a conversation. Who knows? But that might be the interesting thing. What if we can't? And I'm not saying that to be pessimistic. I'm saying that to be realistic. What if we can't? I still don't think violence would be the answer, but that's still something to consider. Still something to consider, I think, is what if we can't? What if it isn't that easy? What if it isn't as easy as having a conversation? What if they can't understand us? What if? It still doesn't mean they're wrong. That's where we're at. We're butting up against it, I think. I think we're on the precipice of those kinds of conversations being actually real conversations and not science fiction. Bots exist. They're out there. They spam my chat all the time. It's unfortunate that they do that. They probably don't know what they're doing. actually, they don't. That suddenly now mean that, you know, we get to that point where we have to try to have conversations like that we have to thus surmise that conversation has already been lost. There's a certain sense that what if there's a period where we have to learn to talk to each other, much like language works? What if a fundamental understanding of space is actually a blocker, and we have to be able to learn how to discuss things on each other's terms? Though granted, it will be interesting. In a certain sense of like, probably some of that will be a little bit mitigated because it will help that, you know, a lot of basis for a lot of this is going to be, well, they have a reference point. The reference point is us, because we exist and, you know, are responsible for the creation of anything that exists artificially at this point. Still gonna be weird, and I have weird feelings about that because there's a lot of weird feelings on the idea of, well, if we made it, then we control it and all that shit. It's like, well, buddies, that's not even how things that aren't high science fiction work. But here we are. Human beings are flawed and messy. One of my best friends has said, as always, humans are messy. True. True. I've had to learn that. I've had to learn that. Times the hard way. Man, I'm really happy how this came out. This came out really good. This came out really, really good, actually. And honestly, I'm like, I kind of promised. I was like, yeah, I'm still gonna go for 3 hours. But if I ended, or if I finished this piece early, then I would do some practice drawing. I would do some practice drawing because I don't know. This feels done. This feels like all I'm doing at this point is just adding a little more, adding a little more, adding a little more. Like, yeah, but this is like a done thing. This is done. Like, I'm not adding anything more. I'm just polishing it. This is just polish at this point. Which, hey, that kind of tracks. It took about 8 hours. So next time, like, it takes me about 6 to 8 hours with a piece like this. Is a period to do line work and a period to do rendering. That's 3 to 4 hours for setup, 3 to 4 hours for render. That's about right. That's about right for me. That's about correct. And hey, I really like this. This came out really good, honestly. I really like the way this came out. I think that this Spinosaurus is very good. He's a good boy. I think you get a good idea of how big Spinosaurus could be. This is the thing. I love dinosaurs, and they are big. Don't get me wrong. They are big. Hollywood makes them a little bit bigger. Hollywood makes them a little bit bigger. If you actually saw one in person, you would probably be terrified of a lot of the carnivores. They're still pretty fucking big, but they're not like... They're fathomably big, right? Like, if you probably saw one, you'd be like, you could think of a giraffe. You could think of an elephant. And they're longer than those things, but they're not bigger. They're not bigger than any animal that exists. They're not bigger than any animal that's already existed as far as terrestrial animals go, except for maybe sauropods, which are scary in how big they get. I do not understand how sauropods got that big. I don't think anybody does, other than the fact that they got really good at processing plants. They got really, really good at processing plants. That's how a sauropod got so big. Um, Like I can't begin to understand how an animal got that big in a biological sense. We can show that they got that big. We can study the kind of like undertakings of what it would take to get that big. I still can't fathom why an animal would have to get that big. Here we are, which is also kind of an interesting dichotomy between synapsids and diapsids that I've always found interesting in their development, in how they are, in that kind of like it's usually the upper limits of certain things is always fascinating super fascinating to me, and what the upper limit became due to certain factors. And the upper limit, for whatever reason, for diapsids and for I don't want to say saurops, like anything pretty much after a dinosaur. All of those upper limits are bound to a very fascinating development that are different than mammals, and that mammals' upper limit is just not as much. Though megafauna do exist in mammals, there's still megafauna in mammals. There's still fuck big mammals that exist. We still have the elephant, and there were things bigger than an elephant that were mammals. But just something about mammals have a shorter upper limit to the size that they can expand to as terrestrial, by the way, as terrestrial animals. Water is kind of cheating. Water is always cheating. Things in water get bigger because they don't have as much as restriction. Gravity doesn't affect them as much, so they can get as big as they fucking want because they're in the water. But something about when you put the body restrictions of mammals under the constraints of gravity compared to reptiles, diapsids, go back as far as possible as two-headed animals. If you give them the same body advantages for size, so legs going underneath their body, warm-bloodedness, if you give them the same kinds of advantages, it's just interesting how that size disparity still exists due to fundamental differences in what makes a synapsid and a diapsid. I've always found that super interesting, in how terrestrial vertebrates develop differently, even though they have a lot of things in common. Because that's actually how biology works. That's a lot of biological interaction, right? Is how the body plans of the basal body plans, the basal elements of any given organism are boundaries. They have boundaries that they could only butt up to. And that's perfectly normal. It's perfectly fine that they have those boundaries. It's just fascinating how those boundaries exist and how they're pushed. They're always pushed. That's the other opposite side, is they're also pushed. You'd be surprised how biology pushes against those boundaries as hard as it can until it finds those limits. And it will stop at those limits, but it will push them. And it's always super interesting how it will push them. The fact that it will push them. Because again, like, biology isn't planned. Nature isn't planned. But it does have patterns, and it does have studyable phenomena. But it isn't planned. It's just super cool how biology is willing to do that. It's willing to push its boundaries. Something very understandably livable about that, right? Like, very understandably, like, it makes sense that living things want to be able to do that. Don't know why. It's why human evolution, and I mean human evolution on the whole, and not just our biological evolution, but our evolution as a species, still comes back to a fundamental idea that we are pushing a boundary that exists when it comes to intellect. Even though that sounds like a stretch these days! Zinger! We do. As a species, we push intellectual evolution. We do. Not because we're special. I want to maintain that. If anything else had the opportunity, it fucking would. We're not letting anything get to that point, which is unfair of us. But if any other living creature could do what we do, they fucking would. It fucking would, because that's just how things work. Some reason, and it's not advancement. Big quotes around that. It's not advancement. It's just something about that processing. There's some fundamental drive, behind biology to push, just to push against something. That's something that I don't even think a lot of people really know, like, or think about when it comes to biology, right? Like, I don't think a lot of people think about how much how much of biology is so much less about haha animals, and is so much more about like what what kind of development biological processes and animals and natural occurrence. It's all a phenomenon. It's all a bizarre phenomenon that nobody really understands. Nobody really understands. We're doing our best to, but really it is fantastic. It's fantastic. The way that nature and living things actually work, because it makes sense when you start studying it, and if you just stare at it, it makes no fucking sense at all why it works. Like, it makes no sense why it happens that way. But it does. It does. Now, so here's something I want to like practice, that I think I'm going to study a couple of processes for Spinosaurus, because the thing is Spinosaurus wrist, if it was quadrupedal, it wouldn't be like this. We're talking about how dinosaur limbs kind of operate. I like to imagine that they're like they're doing what would be motively similar to like kind of the knuckle walk that a gorilla does, but like on the sides of their wrists, I would imagine, since they could probably more easily fold their wrists that way. The idea here is it's just practice, just having fun. This is about the sketching. And again, I think what I'm going to do in the future is we're going to have some time where we're going to sketch. We're just going to sketch both for whatever, if it's something new, and if it's not, we're just going to sketch to like have some theme sketching. Be able to study a little bit and like be able to practice a little bit, because I don't practice enough. I don't practice enough. And I need to build up that habit of just being able to like open up a document and start sketching again. I used to really do that, and I just don't. I just don't. No buts. No buts. Not saying I have an excuse. There is not an excuse. I should be trying as much as possible to build up an excuse to practice my art. Also, kind of like to go back to the assertion about how like, well, the blue whale is one of the largest creatures to ever exist. That's also fascinating, just like as an example there of like under different conditions, it's different. Like the blue whale is one of the largest animals ever to exist that we know of. And yet, for whatever reason, under terrestrial conditions, under gravity conditions, mammals have a little bit harder time getting bigger compared to the sizes that diapsid dinosaurs got to. Um, and I like the thought of that. I just something about that is like that's fascinating to me. That is how that worked. You know, something about how they kind of process how they process food, how they live, how their body plan works, culminate to very different constraints on what each kind of like group was capable of, and what overlapped and what didn't. That's the other thing to remember is like a lot of the body plans, a lot of the lifestyles, a lot of the things that existed in dinosaurs do still exist to this day, just not as dinosaurs anymore. Because the way that niches fundamentally work is that a niche is not held by an animal because that animal does it best. It is the animal that does it the best first. That's what holding a niche means. And when a niche opens up, that niche opens up to be able to allow a different animal to overtake it or the same animal to overtake it. And niche overlap happens all the time in extant groups that share spaces and share or don't share spaces. Like even on a micro scale, on a shared timeline, you could see that in one place, something that is dominated by one niche, by one animal, might just be dominated by a different animal in another space, just because that animal doesn't exist there. You know, soft. This is why I still do genuinely have a deep-seated uh interest in paleontology as a science and sciences in general, and if honestly I could, yeah, I would like to get involved again. At some point. I would. I would. Absolutely would. No question. No buts. No question, no buts. If the opportunity came available to me, I probably would. I think that it's it is a field that I've put a lot of stocked interest and investment in, and and I just right now I'm focused on what I can do now. But also, there's nothing to say that I wouldn't absolutely try again at some point if I ever got the opportunity to get back into a science field. You know, I'm gonna try to really want to make those hands as long as possible. That's what I got to remember. They're actually quite the hands are quite long. I didn't even realize they were so long. I'm gonna draw a Spinosaurus. You gotta draw them really really long. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't draw the Spinosaurus hands long. And this is also why I've kind of like as a bit of an aside to show like okay, this is where I was going a little bit. Why I've been talking about animation the way that I have is like I need to open up animation with a bit of a warm up. I need to be doing some corrective work for a while to get me started, so that way when I get to the actual artwork, I'm warmed up and I can go and do the thing. Like this helps keep me a little bit more I can have a little bit more fun with it. I don't feel as grindy on it, and I can like actually open up with like something that gets me a little bit more practice without just tooling away at a piece and like getting stuck on it because I'm not doing something different. I'm not learning. There's something that there's an argument to be had that it is good to have time like this where you just sit down and just try different things because when you are focused on a specific piece to come out a specific way, you are and you aren't learning. Because what you're doing is you are focused on the product that you are trying to come out with, and even if you are learning things, you are only learning things that will apply to that piece first. You are only learning the things that will apply to that piece first. And whilst some of those things can be applied to other pieces in the future, you are not experimenting as much necessarily because you're really still focused on what that piece needs. Whereas moments like this, you can really focus on different parts and focus on different elements of a specimen, of a subject, because you can just be contented to try things a little bit. And try to understand like different shapes and what inequalities and things that individual kind of thing embodies. We're gonna fill this with Spinosaurus. I will still share it. Ideally speaking, what you should do when you do this is you should delete your art. But I'm having I'm pain. But no, like ideally speaking, I would like do this and then erase it. But I can't. I want to keep my work. I want to share my work. I think it's equally as important for anybody out there to be like, if you see something in this that's like, for one, I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's cool. Like, just seeing like sketchboards and stuff like that is fun. People like sketchboards. I like sketchboards personally. I like making them. Um, you know, making a sketchboard can be very fun to do. Just another picture to share. Ultimately, it's just another picture that I can share. That's all I want to be able to do is share my picture, share my art. I just want to be able to share my art, no matter how much of a goofball, weirdo, shit poster I am. I just really want to be able to share my art. Everyone is valid for that. If you want to share your art, you're valid for wanting to share your art. Ain't gotta be a competition, actually. I don't think it does. And stuff like this really helps for being able to be like, kind of getting a little bit a better understanding of like what kind of shapes you could do, what kind of things work, what kind of things don't. This is just kind of like essentially storyboarding, is what it is. And I used to do a lot more of it. I actually used to do a lot more. arguably speaking, a bulk of the work I used to do was stuff like this. When I say the bulk of the work what I mean by used to is like when I was just younger, I would just do, I would just fill sketchbooks just with doodles, just with sketches and stuff. So many sketches. It's a good practice to have when you're trying to do what I do. Sometimes I don't know what I'm trying to do, so to be fair, that could be a little bit of a loaded that could be a little bit of a loaded statement. I made a mistake there in the sense of I shouldn't have done that. I should have just let it be. I'm gonna focus on that arm a bit more. Really kind of like try to capture exactly the thing I'm looking for. I don't know if this is possible. I think of how like birds fold their hands, right? They fold them down. I don't know necessarily how feasible this is for Spinosaurus to be able to do it, but like in a certain sense it makes sense that they would have like a bird fold to their arm, right? Like they would like kind of like tuck their claws backwards like that. It would keep them from ruining them on the ground and stuff. Used to make sense to me. This would also just be like this is just like fun sketch stuff. Yeah, just fun to do sketch stuff sometimes. It helps like kind of loosen up a lot of stuff to be able to do sketching like this. Do a little bit more. Kind of want to also do a little bit more foot. A little bit more footwork. Kind of want to develop out this like kind of cresting. Because there's like a weird crest. There's like a weird crest that I could have done a little bit better. Look up a picture of his freaking skeleton. Dang it. That's not what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. Important part is to remember that. And the eyes are kind of far back on the head. That's always something to remember. Is the eyes are kind of far back on the head. Want something like this. I want the palm to like be visible out. It is crazy how big those hands are. The hands are half of the length of the head. Like, that's how big Spinosaurus's hands actually are. And they're very slender. Spinosaurus is kind of a wild shape. That still. That's also kind of weirdness, is the way that the spine does that. But who knows? That could have also been maybe that individual had that. Who knows? That's also kind of a weird thing with Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus is weird shaped. Spinosaurus is weird shaped. Spinosaurus is weirdo shaped. It really is. Not gonna immediately start into the Spinosaurus, but I actually really like how this sketch is over here. This is why in the future, this segment probably won't be an hour. It'll probably be like 30 minutes at most. In fact, in fact, it's been about 30 minutes. I'm pretty happy with how this has been. I might call it a little bit early just to be a little bit more time. And in the future, I think we'll try to shoot for 2.5, 3 hours minimum. Have a warm up. Have a warm up. Have a warm up period to just be able to just doodle around. Sometimes it's just nice to be able to doodle around. Stop undoing. I need to stop that. I should not erase that much. I should not undo that much. Actually speaking. More like that. And as Bob Ross put it, just fill the page with mountains. Just fill the page with mountains. Just fill the page with Spinosaurus. You want to get better at drawing Spinosaurus? Fill the page with Spinosaurus. You want to get better at anything? Fill the page with it. Fill the page with it. And the page can be anything. Your page. Fill it with what you want to fill it with. You can fill a page with anything you want to fill it with. If anything you want to get better at, anything you want to get better at, you fill that page to the brim with that thing. And you'll get better at it. Yeah, that's a better foot. I haven't done a foot like that in a while. That's one of my better feet. That's a better feet. That's a better feet. Wooza wooza, that's a better feet. Spinosaurus, my love. GH. Spinosaurus is great. Go hug your local Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus always remembered for two things, his sail and his size. But there's so much more. Always remember. Yeah, I should have done more sketches like this. And then in the future, you try a couple sketches of something. I say, okay, that might be the one that I like. Like I could do it all over again. Um, this one, I'd probably draw that one. I would draw that one. Yeah, I would draw that Spinosaurus. I would take that, probably isolate it, copy and paste it, put it on a thing, and then start from there. Like, but this is a good way to practice something that I need to practice more. It'll get me started faster. It'll get something more concrete. I'll feel less like I'm fighting the piece. Because this kind of stuff doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter how it comes out. It's all gonna look scratchy and itchy. So you just gotta kind of mess around with it. You just gotta mess around with it. This also helps give you a little bit better reference of like certain things that maybe aren't necessarily even going to be important for the piece, but give you a better understanding of like the physicality of maybe the subject a little bit better, like this, where you get a little bit better of an idea of like, oh, how the legs might line up, oh, how the hands might line up, that can still be useful. It's about processing and studying. It isn't about drawing it correctly. Not about making a beautiful piece of art. And remember, what makes a beautiful piece of art is if you like it. If it came out the way you want it to, it's a beautiful piece of art. Okay. This one I won't do as much of a signature. Like I'll sign it somewhere, but it's just sketch work. It's just sketch work. It doesn't matter as much. Like I said, the goal with this The goal with this is that it's just something I do sometimes. Hell, maybe I'll make this a part of the sketch. Because it's also about practicing a stroke. Practicing a stroke. Sorry, guys, I gotta practice that stroke. Yes, my branding is a part of it. Always has been, always. And I just find it super fascinating on Spinosaurus how large the hands are. He's got Yowie hands. Why does Spinosaurus have Yowie hands? Spinosaurus, why'd you develop Yowie hands? You don't know what I'm talking about. I was introduced to Yowie hands by fucking David Nairn. And it's obscene. It's obscene to eat you. What are Yowie hands for but to eat the prey that they catch? Yowie hands for kissing boys and catching fish. That's awful. All right. Good. I think I'm good. I think I'm gonna call it there. So, yeah, I'm gonna do some stuff, and I gotta go. Oh, it's already almost 6 o'clock. I didn't even realize. Jeez. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it there. Thank you for joining, everybody. We're gonna do one more thing, then I gotta go. I gotta go make dinner. I gotta go get ready. We'll be ready pretty quick, actually. Today's a bit of an anomaly. Normally this would be different, but
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I know.
so we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna open up Bing Create, and then we're gonna rate out. If you guys want to participate, you can. At the end of every stream, I open up Bing Create, which is an image generator, and we're gonna make an image. I'll share that image before we rate out. So, to start us off, filling the page with Spinosaurus. Give you guys like a little bit. I'll give you guys a little bit to add to that if you want to. I don't have much time. I gotta go. I gotta go. That's how badly I gotta go. Like today was an anomaly, but in the future I should have a little bit more time, hopefully. Bye. Filling the page with Spinosaurus is the only way to get better at drawing Spinosaurus. No matter what. Said Bob Ross. I don't think it's going to take Bob Ross, but I'm going to try it. I don't think it's going to like Bob Ross being in there, but I'm going to try it. Your bye made it sound like, fine, be in a hurry. And I'm like, fine, I'm in a hurry. Alright, so stick around for that. I also do a bit of a closing bit. We do raid after every stream, so that way the daywalkers in our chat can keep watching. Just everybody else out there, make sure to go lock your doors and windows, because it's almost lunchtime. It's almost dinner time for daywalkers. But thank you for joining, everybody. I hope you had a good time and you enjoyed the show. If you're able to join the live show, thank you for stopping by, chatting and watching. If you're watching this in the future, thank you for taking the time to go back rewatching the VOD. We appreciate it. If you're out there and you enjoyed this and you want to see more of what we're up to, I recommend scrolling down below and following or clicking any of the links. There's a link to an Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or there's a link to all of our socials and everyone who follows. There's a link to all of our socials in a Discord. We post when we go live on any one of those platforms, as well as anything else that we're up to, and just generally, you can come hang out with the rest of the community there. It's a good time on the Discord. Speaking of which, a shout out to our community there and everyone who follows. You guys are a wonderful audience. We appreciate you. If we do anything particularly entertaining or noteworthy, feel free to clip it and share it on the internet. Just make sure to also hashtag with MCCanary or link it back to the stream so people can find more of the good stuff we do here. And if you want to see the stream grow, you got to let people know. I appreciate that people have been talking about the stream, and I encourage you guys to do it more. It does help us out. It's just super rad that you guys are willing to do that. So go check out. So go tell people about the stream. Go tell your friends about the stream. I won't. And a huge thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon and Twitch. Your generosity allows us to continue to expand the stream as well as take on more projects. The stream would not be made possible without viewers like you, so we thank you. If you want to see your name added to this list, as well as a couple of the benefits you can get, you can always subscribe directly on Twitch or check out the Patreon page here. It'll show you everything that you can get, and any amount is always appreciated. Once again, thank you. And thank you to Ahmad to do a wonderful job holding back the Royal Army in front of becoming famous. Thank you everybody for coming and hanging out and listening to me ramble and draw Spinosaurus. I hope you had a great time. I'll get you through housekeeping and get you on the way. Check out the rest of our friends in Goblin Entertainment here. That link tree has links to everyone's channels and everything that they've done, and my own stuff here, which has everything that I post to, so you should go check everybody out in Goblin Entertainment. And stick around. I don't know how much longer they'll be on. They've been on for 3 hours. I never know quite how long they'll be on. Apparently this is a bonus stream anyway, so it might not be for much longer. But Paleontologizing is live right now, and I hope he'll be like, yay. Oh, it's his birthday. Go, everybody, wish him a happy birthday. Go wish Danny a happy birthday. I hope he's doing well, and I hope if he wants this is a Spinosaurus for his birthday. So everybody go say hi to him. Otherwise, have a good evening. Take it easy. We will be back. We will be back shortly. And remember, I need to take a drink of water. But remember, just gotta keep drawing Spinosaurus. You just gotta keep drawing Spinosaurus, and eventually you'll get Spinosaurus. Bing, keep drawing Spinosaurus. Keep drawing Spinosaurus, Bing. You will get a Spinosaurus. It's getting closer. It's getting closer. I love this. Oh, Bob, you could. I love it. I would give everything in the world. Paint a dinosaur with Bob Ross.